No one knew the quiet janitor hiding in plain sight had once commanded the skis until a playful challenge turned into a breathtaking revelation. Sure. Here's part 1, explained in simple, engaging English, expanded to around 1,000 words. The office building was alive with the usual buzz of activity. Phones rang, keyboards clicked, and the low murmur of conversations filled the air. Maria moved quietly through the halls, her cleaning cart rolling softly behind her. She had worked as a janitor in this company for several years now. And over time, she had learned to move almost invisibly through the busy office space. People barely noticed her as she worked, and she preferred it that way. Maria liked observing the office life from the sidelines. She knew the routines of the employees, the small habits of the managers, and the energy that filled the air during important meetings. She had learned to blend into the background, keeping her own life and stories private. On that particular day, the atmosphere in the office was a little different. There was a sense of excitement in the air. Rumors had been circulating for weeks about the CEO, a man known for his charm and playful personality, and a sudden announcement he was planning. People were whispering about the unusual opportunity to see him outside of his office, doing something unexpected. The CEO, Mr. Adrian Blake, had always been a charismatic figure. He was tall, confident, and had a way of making even ordinary conversations feel entertaining. Employees often joked about his over-the-top personality, but there was no denying that he had a magnetic presence. Everyone seemed to hang on to his every word, whether he was making a serious announcement or just teasing someone with a joke. Maria had no interest in office gossip. She preferred to stay focused on her work, making sure every floor was clean, every desk area neat, and the hallways sparkling. But even she couldn't help noticing the growing excitement that seemed to ripple through the building. People were talking about helicopters, flight lessons, and an unexpected challenge that the CEO had announced. According to whispers in the hallway, Mr. Blake was joking about learning to fly a helicopter and had even made a playful bet with someone, although no one knew the details. Maria continued her work, rolling her cart past the conference rooms, listening quietly. She didn't like to interrupt her tasks, but curiosity tugged at her. There was something unusual about the way people were smiling and whispering. It felt different from the normal corporate buzz. Later that afternoon, Maria found herself near the rooftop, a place she rarely visited. She had been sent to clean the windows and make sure the area was tidy. As she looked out over the city, she could see the shiny helicopter waiting on the helipad below. It was a sleek new model, polished and impressive. Employees gathered around, some taking photos with their phones, others chatting excitedly. Maria stayed back, leaning slightly against the railing, quietly observing. Then she noticed the CEO walking toward the helicopter, a big grin on his face. He waved at the crowd and started talking, his voice carrying easily across the rooftop. Maria listened carefully. "Who here thinks they can fly this helicopter?" he asked, jokingly. The employees laughed, shaking their heads nervously. Then he turned to Maria, who had been silently observing from a distance. "Maria," he said, his grin mischievous, "fly this helicopter and I'll marry you." The words caught Maria completely off guard. She froze for a moment, unsure whether she had heard correctly. The CEO, of course, laughed loudly, clearly treating it as a joke, and the employees around them chuckled as well. Some people whispered, surprised by the joke and by the idea of the janitor being addressed in such a playful way. Maria smiled politely, her heart racing slightly. She didn't respond immediately. She simply nodded and laughed softly, as if joining in on the joke. But inside, her mind was spinning. Flying a helicopter? Marriage? It all sounded completely absurd, and yet there was something about the challenge that made her pause. Maria had a secret, something she had never told anyone in the office. Years ago, before she had taken this job, she had been trained as a helicopter pilot. She had flown professionally, learning every detail of the aircraft, mastering controls, maneuvers, and the kind of skills that could make someone confident and precise in the air. Life had taken a different turn, though. Personal circumstances, family responsibilities, and financial struggles had forced her to give up her dream and find a steady job that could support her. She had started as a janitor in this company, and though it was a humble position, it gave her stability. She had buried her past, keeping it private, and no one in the office would ever suspect that the quiet janitor, who moved unnoticed through the halls, had once soared through the skies. Standing on the rooftop and listening to the CEO's playful challenge, that part of her life stirred awake. It was as if the memory of flying, of being in control and feeling the wind and sky around her, was calling her back. She smiled inwardly, knowing that this was more than just a joke. It was an unexpected opportunity to reconnect with a part of herself she had left behind. At the same time, she knew that revealing her skill could change how people saw her. Up until now, she had been invisible in the office, quietly doing her work without attracting attention. If she were to step forward and take this challenge seriously, it could alter her life in ways she couldn't yet predict. Despite the nervous excitement, Maria decided to keep her secret for now. She continued cleaning, moving through the office with her cart, smiling politely at the employees who occasionally waved or whispered jokes about the helicopter challenge. She listened as people speculated about who might actually attempt to fly the helicopter. Most of them assumed it was a task no one could realistically do, certainly not someone like her. The janitor who spent her days mopping floors and emptying trash cans, but Maria knew differently. She felt a quiet confidence building inside her, a mix of curiosity and the thrill of possibility. Perhaps, just perhaps, she would take the challenge seriously, and maybe the playful words of the CEO would lead to something extraordinary. By the end of the day, Maria had finished her tasks and returned to the janitor's closet to put away her supplies. She paused for a moment, looking at the small window that offered a view of the rooftop. The helicopter gleamed under the late afternoon sun, waiting, silent and still. Maria took a deep breath. She smiled to herself, knowing that her life could be about to change. That simple joke by the CEO had awakened a part of her she had kept hidden for years, and she realized that she had an important decision to make. Would she step forward and reveal her secret, embracing the chance to fly once again? Or would she continue to watch from the sidelines, keeping her past carefully locked away? Either way, something had shifted. The quiet janitor who had always gone unnoticed was no longer content to stay invisible. For the first time in years, Maria felt the spark of excitement, the thrill of possibility, and the reminder that life could hold unexpected surprises even for someone like her. The day after the rooftop incident, the office felt unusually lively. Employees whispered in corners, casting glances at Maria as she moved quietly down the hallways, pushing her cleaning cart. The playful words of the CEO had spread quickly, and everyone seemed curious about what would happen next. Some joked behind her back, imagining the janitor actually attempting to fly a helicopter. Maria kept her expression calm, pretending not to hear the chatter, though inside she was thinking deeply. That small joke had awakened a long-buried part of herself, and she couldn't stop replaying the idea in her mind. Could she actually take this challenge seriously? Could she really get into the cockpit again, after so many years? As she cleaned offices and polished floors, memories came flooding back. She remembered the early days of her helicopter training, the smell of the fuel, the smooth hum of the engine, and the thrill of rising into the air. Flying had been her passion, her escape, and her sense of freedom. She had trained for months, learning every control, every emergency maneuver, and every calculation that a skilled pilot had to master. But life had other plans. Family responsibilities, financial struggles, and personal setbacks had forced her to give up that dream. She had traded the skies for stability, becoming the janitor in a busy office building. For years she had hidden her skill, knowing that it would only complicate her life if anyone found out. Now, however, that hidden talent was tugging at her again, as if it refused to stay buried. Maria decided she needed to consider the opportunity carefully. She couldn't just jump in without preparation. Even though she remembered the basics, a helicopter was not something one could handle carelessly. She began researching quietly, reading manuals and watching videos on flight procedures during her breaks. She was careful to do this when no one was around, keeping her plans secret. The thought of surprising everyone, the CEO, her co-workers, even herself, filled her with both excitement and nervousness. Every day she rehearsed the idea in her mind, walking onto the helipad, climbing into the cockpit, starting the engine, and taking off into the open sky. The memory of her old confidence in the air made her heart race with anticipation. At the same time, Maria knew she had to consider the consequences. What if she revealed her secret and something went wrong? She had spent years in this quiet, stable position, and one bold move could change everything. The office gossip alone could make her life difficult. And yet, the pull of her old passion was too strong to ignore. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that she could no longer live in hiding. She had a skill, a talent that had shaped who she was, and it deserved to be acknowledged. The playful challenge from the CEO had become more than a joke. It was a door opening to a part of her life she had thought was gone forever. Meanwhile, the CEO was oblivious to the secret that Maria held. He continued joking with employees about the helicopter challenge, laughing loudly and making light of the situation. To him, it was a fun distraction, a way to entertain the staff and inject some excitement into their ordinary workdays. He didn't realize that his words had planted a seed in Maria's mind, a seed that was growing rapidly into a serious plan. The contrast between his casual attitude and her focused determination was stark. While he thought of it as a game, Maria saw it as a chance to reclaim a piece of herself, to step back into the life she had left behind. As the days passed, Maria started practicing in small ways. She used a flight simulator she had managed to borrow quietly from an old friend in aviation, reliving the feel of the controls and the responses of the aircraft. Hours spent in the simulator reminded her of the precision and skill required. She learned to manage her nerves again, to trust her instincts, and to remember that her body and mind still knew how to handle a helicopter. With each session, her confidence grew. She realized that even after years of being away from the skies, she was still capable of flying. That knowledge gave her a quiet sense of empowerment. For the first time in years, she felt alive in a way that went beyond the routines of sweeping floors and emptying trash cans at work. Maria's behavior subtly began to change. She moved with a little more confidence, smiled slightly more, and even held her head a bit higher. The employees noticed the difference, though they couldn't quite put their finger on it. Some wondered if the janitor had suddenly gained a new attitude. Others assumed she had simply heard more jokes about the helicopter. No one suspected the truth, that Maria was preparing to step into the cockpit and show the world the secret she had carried for so long. She was careful not to draw attention, choosing her moments and spaces wisely. Every interaction was measured, every glance controlled, because she knew that revealing her skill too soon could create unnecessary complications. The idea of actually flying in front of the CEO also made Maria reflect on her own life and choices. She thought about why she had given up aviation in the first place, the responsibilities, the sacrifices, and the practicalities that had forced her to choose stability over passion. She realized that she had spent years undervaluing herself, believing that her talent wasn't important enough to show. Now, with the helicopter challenge, she had a chance not only to demonstrate her skills, but also to reclaim a sense of pride and self-worth. This internal motivation became even more powerful than the playful promise of the CEO. Flying was no longer about the joke. It was about proving to herself that she was capable, talented, and ready to face challenges head-on. As the day of the flight lesson approached, Maria's preparation intensified. She reviewed flight manuals meticulously, studied emergency procedures, and even practiced calming techniques to manage nerves under pressure. Every moment she spent thinking about the upcoming challenge strengthened her resolve. She imagined the helicopter taking off, the wind rushing past her, and the city sprawling below. It was a familiar feeling, yet entirely thrilling, like reconnecting with an old friend. She knew that once she stepped into the cockpit, nothing could stop her from showing her true abilities. The anticipation was a mix of excitement and tension. But Maria welcomed it. Knowing that it was exactly what she needed, by the evening before the scheduled lesson, Maria felt ready. She packed a small bag with essentials for the day, carefully avoiding anything that might reveal her intentions to her coworkers. She took a quiet moment to reflect on how far she had come from a professional pilot forced to give up her dream to a janitor, quietly preparing to surprise everyone with her skill. The thought brought a smile to her face. She realized that life had given her a second chance, an unexpected opportunity disguised as a joke. and she was determined not to let it slip away. Maria went to bed that night with a mixture of excitement and calm determination,
Ow.
knowing that the next day could change everything. The day of the helicopter lesson arrived, and the office was buzzing more than ever. Employees whispered excitedly in corners, glancing at the rooftop through the windows, trying to catch a glimpse of the sleek aircraft waiting for its next pilot. Maria arrived early as usual, pushing her cleaning cart quietly through the hallways. Her heart was beating faster than it had in years, but she kept her face calm and her movements deliberate. No one suspected the storm of excitement and preparation swirling inside her. To the staff, she was just the quiet janitor, going about her usual routine. To herself, she was about to reclaim a part of her life she had thought was lost forever. Maria carefully carried her bag of essentials to the rooftop, pretending it was just cleaning supplies. She took a moment to stand at the edge, looking down at the helicopter gleaming under the morning sun. The sleek curves of the aircraft reminded her of the long hours she had spent flying, of the freedom she had once felt soaring above the world. The memory made her heart race. She adjusted her stance and took a deep breath, calming herself. This was more than just a flight. It was a challenge, a test of everything she had learned and every skill she had once mastered. She reminded herself that she could do this. She had flown helicopters before. She could do it again. The CEO arrived shortly after, laughing and joking with his staff as he walked toward the helicopter. He waved at the crowd of employees, making light of the situation. "So, who's brave enough to take me up in the air?" he called out, a playful sparkle in his eyes. He looked around, then locked eyes with Maria and repeated his teasing challenge. "Maria, remember what I said? Fly this helicopter?" The crowd laughed, some clapping at the absurdity of the statement. Maria smiled politely, her face calm, but inside she felt a surge of excitement. The joke that had sparked curiosity weeks ago had now become real, and it was her chance to step into the cockpit and show her true self. The employees gathered around the rooftop, some taking out their phones to record what they assumed would be a humorous disaster. None of them expected the quiet janitor to be a capable pilot. Maria watched their faces, noticing the skeptical and amused expressions. She knew that if she revealed her skill too soon, she could shock them all. But she also understood that the suspense would make her demonstration even more powerful. She took a deep breath, recalling every detail of her past training. The feel of the controls, the sound of the engine, the subtle shifts of the aircraft responding to her touch, all of it came back to her as if no time had passed. Her hands tingled with anticipation as she imagined gripping the controls once again. Before entering the helicopter, Maria made a few quick checks, reviewing the pre-flight procedures in her mind. She remembered every step, starting the engine, checking the instruments, ensuring fuel levels, scanning for any potential hazards. Each movement was familiar, precise, and automatic. Despite her long absence from flying, her training and experience had left a permanent mark on her instincts. She felt a rush of confidence. If anyone had been watching closely, they might have noticed a subtle change in her posture, a new assurance in the way she moved. Maria climbed into the cockpit with a sense of quiet determination, her eyes scanning the instruments as she adjusted the seat and strapped herself in. The CEO followed, laughing nervously, assuming he was about to witness a lighthearted attempt at a challenge. Once inside, Maria started the engine smoothly. The rotor blades began to spin, slicing through the air with a powerful hum. The crowd of employees below gasped as the helicopter lifted slightly off the ground. Maria's fingers moved confidently over the controls, making precise adjustments to keep the aircraft steady. The CEO's laughter faded as he realized that Maria was in control, handling the helicopter with skill he hadn't anticipated. Her calm, deliberate movements betrayed no hesitation. Every maneuver, every turn, and every adjustment was executed flawlessly. The air around the rooftop seemed to hold its breath as the employees watched in astonishment. The quiet janitor, whom they had overlooked for years, was suddenly the center of attention, commanding the helicopter with expert precision. As the helicopter rose higher, Maria felt a familiar exhilaration. The wind rushed past, the city stretched out below her, and the thrill of flight returned in full force. She expertly navigated the aircraft through gentle turns, dips, and climbs, showing off subtle maneuvers that revealed her deep knowledge of the controls. The CEO's eyes widened in disbelief. He had expected a clumsy attempt at best, but what he saw was a masterful demonstration of skill and confidence. He realized that his playful joke had underestimated not only Maria's abilities, but also the depth of her hidden past. The employees below were equally stunned, whispering among themselves and recording the unbelievable scene. Despite the excitement, Maria maintained complete focus. She knew that even a small mistake could be dangerous, and she was determined to prove that her abilities were genuine. Every command and adjustment was deliberate, executed with the precision of someone who had spent countless hours mastering the art of flight. The feeling of power and control filled her with confidence. She realized that she was not just proving a point to the CEO or her coworkers, she was proving it to herself. The years of hidden talent, the sacrifices, and the doubts that had lingered in her mind were all being validated in this single moment. Flying again reminded her of who she truly was, and that realization made her heart soar alongside the helicopter. The CEO, now fully aware of the reality before him, attempted to speak, but his words caught in his throat. He could only watch as Maria demonstrated advanced maneuvers, effortlessly controlling the helicopter with skill and precision. For the first time, he was genuinely humbled. The playful, carefree attitude he had maintained throughout the office vanished, replaced by awe and respect. The employees, too, were mesmerized. Whispers of astonishment ran through the crowd. Some could hardly believe what they were seeing. The quiet janitor, overlooked and underestimated for years, was revealing a side of herself that no one had ever imagined. The moment was electric, filled with suspense, admiration, and a hint of disbelief. As the flight continued, Maria's confidence grew even stronger. She navigated the helicopter through small loops and precise turns, each one executed perfectly. She felt completely in her element, as if no time had passed since she last flew. The thrill of controlling such a powerful machine, combined with the astonished reactions below, filled her with a quiet satisfaction. She was reclaiming a part of herself that had been hidden for far too long, and she knew that this moment would change how people saw her and how she saw herself. The playful challenge from the CEO had transformed into an opportunity for self-affirmation, courage, and transformation. Finally, after a series of impressive maneuvers, Maria guided the helicopter smoothly back toward the rooftop. She carefully descended, maintaining perfect control, and landed it safely. The rotor blades gradually slowing as the aircraft touched the helipad. The crowd erupted in astonished applause, their previous skepticism replaced with admiration and surprise. The CEO stared at her in awe, finally understanding the depth of her talent and the story behind the quiet janitor he had underestimated. Maria climbed out of the cockpit, her face calm, but her heart racing with triumph. She had faced the challenge, conquered her fears, and reminded herself and everyone else of her true capabilities. The moment the helicopter's wheels touched the rooftop, a stunned silence fell over the crowd of employees. Applause began slowly, almost hesitantly, as the reality sank in. Maria had just landed the helicopter perfectly, something no one expected from the quiet janitor they had known for years. People stared at her in disbelief, some mouths hanging open. There's whispering to their neighbors, trying to process what they had just witnessed. The CEO, Adrian Blake, remained frozen for a moment, his usual playful grin replaced by genuine astonishment. He had believed his joke was harmless, that the challenge would be impossible for anyone, especially Maria, and now reality had completely upended his expectations. Maria climbed out of the cockpit with calm determination. Her expression was composed, but inside she felt a mixture of pride, relief, and exhilaration. She had proven to herself that she was still capable, that the skills she had once honed were not gone. As she walked toward the edge of the rooftop, she could feel the eyes of every employee fixed on her. The whispers grew louder, some praising her skill, others questioning if what they had seen was even real. The CEO finally found his voice, stepping closer to her with a mix of admiration and disbelief. "Maria, I had no idea," he stammered. His usual confidence seemed gone. replaced by the rare vulnerability of someone witnessing a truth far beyond expectation. Maria smiled softly, realizing that it was finally time to reveal the secret she had been keeping for years. She took a deep breath, the wind from the city below brushing against her face, and spoke clearly. "I used to fly helicopters professionally," she said, her tone calm yet assertive. "I trained for years and I worked in aviation before life circumstances forced me to leave that world behind. I didn't tell anyone because it wasn't necessary for my job here, and I wanted to stay focused on my responsibilities." The CEO's jaw dropped, and his eyes widened even further. The employees below gasped in unison. Many of them had assumed that the skill they had just witnessed was either luck or a lucky coincidence. Hearing her explanation confirmed that what they had seen was real. Maria's revelation transformed the entire atmosphere. The quiet, unassuming janitor they had overlooked for years was actually someone with remarkable talent, someone who had once worked in a high-stakes, highly skilled profession. The office, which had always seemed ordinary and predictable, now felt electrified with new energy and respect for Maria. The CEO stepped closer, still trying to process everything. I can't believe it," he said, shaking his head. "All this time and we never knew? You've completely blown me away." Maria nodded politely, acknowledging his admiration but keeping her focus. She wasn't seeking praise. She wanted to make a statement about her capabilities and remind herself of her own worth. In that moment, she realized that she had not only proved herself to the CEO and the staff, but she had also proved something essential to herself, that her talent had never disappeared, that she was still capable of amazing things. Even after years away from the skies, some employees, still watching from the edges of the rooftop, began approaching her cautiously. They asked questions, curious about how she had learned to fly, where she had worked before, and why she had kept her past hidden. Maria answered with honesty, sharing just enough to satisfy their curiosity while keeping certain personal details private. Every answer she gave reinforced the sense of awe that had settled over the group. The realization that someone they had ignored or underestimated for years had such extraordinary skills caused a shift in how everyone viewed her. Suddenly, Maria was no longer just the janitor. She was someone whose past experiences, discipline, and talent demanded respect. The CEO, still trying to recover from his shock, stepped back and watched as the crowd around Maria began to whisper excitedly, sharing their newfound respect for her. He realized that his playful joke had unintentionally revealed a hidden story of courage, sacrifice, and skill. He approached Maria again, his tone more serious this time. "Maria, I need to apologize," he said sincerely. "I made a joke without thinking about the consequences, and I never imagined that you would. Well, that you would do this. I'm impressed beyond words." Maria smiled softly, accepting his apology, but knowing that the moment had gone far beyond the need for words. Her actions had spoken louder than anything anyone could have said. As the initial shock settled, Maria reflected on her own journey. She thought about the years she had spent hiding her skills, the sacrifices she had made, and the quiet persistence that had kept her moving forward in life. Flying the helicopter again had brought back a sense of freedom and self-assurance she hadn't felt in years. It was more than just a professional achievement. It was a personal triumph. The revelation of her secret was cathartic, lifting a weight that she had carried silently for so long. She felt a profound sense of empowerment, knowing that she had confronted fear, taken a bold risk, and emerged stronger and more confident than ever. The employees around her continued to react, some offering congratulations, others asking to hear more about her past experiences. Maria answered with quiet confidence, her stories brief but revealing enough to showcase her expertise. The energy on the rooftop shifted from curiosity and skepticism to admiration and respect. People began to understand that talent and courage could exist in places they least expected. The lesson of the day was clear. Never underestimate someone based on appearances or their current role. Maria's skill, once hidden, now commanded attention and changed perceptions in an instant. The CEO, still processing the event, realized that Maria's revelation had done more than impress him. It had also made him reflect on his own assumptions and behavior. He had been casual, playful, and even dismissive when he made the helicopter joke, but he now understood the depth of responsibility, skill, and courage it took to accomplish what Maria had just done. He felt a mix of humility and admiration, recognizing that his employee, whom he had likely overlooked countless times, possessed extraordinary abilities and a strength of character that went far beyond what he had imagined. The CEO's respect for Maria had grown immensely in just a few minutes, and he knew that this moment would stay with him for a long time. As the day progressed, Maria's revelation continued to ripple through the office. People shared the story with their coworkers, recounting the moment she had landed the helicopter and revealed her past. The narrative spread quickly, inspiring awe and admiration throughout the company. Maria, however, remained humble, focusing on her work while quietly savoring the impact she had made. She had not sought fame or recognition, but the acknowledgement of her skills was deeply satisfying. The experience reinforced her sense of self-worth and reminded her that hidden talents, when embraced, could change the way the world saw her. By the end of the day, the initial shock had settled into admiration and respect. The CEO approached Maria one last time, this time with a genuine smile and an offer. "Maria, if you're interested, we'd love to have you share your expertise. Perhaps even mentor others, or get involved in aviation-related projects here. Your talent is remarkable, and it would be a shame for it to go unnoticed." Maria considered the offer carefully, feeling a mix of gratitude and excitement. She knew that opportunities were opening in ways she hadn't expected, and she felt empowered to choose her next steps. The revelation of her secret had changed everything, transforming not only how others saw her, but how she saw herself as someone capable, talented, and ready for new challenges. After the incredible helicopter flight and the revelation of Maria's secret, the atmosphere in the office had completely changed. The employees who had once overlooked her now looked at her with a mix of admiration, respect, and curiosity. People whispered among themselves, sharing stories of what they had just witnessed, repeating over and over how the quiet janitor had astonished everyone with her extraordinary skill. Maria, however, moved through it all with her usual calm demeanor, quietly proud but focused on her work. She knew that while the reactions of others were validating, what mattered most was how she felt, empowered, confident, and ready to embrace her own abilities without fear. The CEO, Adrian Blake, had been watching Maria closely ever since she stepped out of the cockpit. He was no longer joking or playful. His usual charisma had given way to genuine respect and a desire to make amends for underestimating her. He approached her carefully, his steps measured. "Maria," he said, his voice steady but filled with sincerity, "I want to thank you for showing all of us what true skill and courage look like. I made a joke without thinking, but you've turned it into something remarkable. I'm sorry for underestimating you." Maria smiled softly. She appreciated the acknowledgement, but she didn't need apologies. What mattered was that her abilities were now visible, recognized, and appreciated in the days that followed. Maria noticed subtle but significant changes in the office. People began treating her differently, not in a condescending way, but with genuine respect. Her coworkers asked her advice, complimented her work, and even sought her guidance on small challenges. Maria realized that she was no longer invisible. Her skills, her presence, and her story had shifted perceptions in ways she hadn't imagined. The office, which had once felt ordinary and routine, now seemed filled with possibility. People had learned a valuable lesson. Never judge someone by their role or appearance. Hidden talents could exist in anyone. And sometimes the quietest people were the most extraordinary. Maria also began reflecting on her own life and choices. The helicopter flight and the revelation of her past had rekindled a sense of freedom and possibility she hadn't felt in years. She remembered why she had loved flying in the first place: the thrill of control, the joy of exploration, and the feeling of being truly alive. For years she had sacrificed her passion for stability and practicality, but now she realized that her talent had never left her. It was still a part of her, waiting for the right moment to re-emerge. This awareness gave her a renewed sense of purpose and a belief that she could pursue opportunities she had once thought were lost. One afternoon, CEO invited Maria to a private meeting in his office. He wanted to discuss opportunities for her to contribute in new ways. "Maria," he said, leaning forward in his chair, "I've been thinking about how we can make the most of your skills. I'd love for you to be involved in aviation-related projects here, maybe even train staff in safety or flight basics. Your expertise is incredible, and it would be a shame not to share it." Maria listened carefully, considering the offer. She realized that this was more than just a chance to prove herself. It was an opportunity to reclaim her career and explore possibilities she had long abandoned. The excitement and anticipation she felt reminded her of her early days as a pilot. Ready to take on the world, despite the new opportunities, Maria remained humble. She didn't seek attention or accolades. She wanted to use her skills in meaningful ways. She agreed to the CEO's proposal, seeing it as a step toward creating a bridge between her hidden talents and the professional world she had left behind. She began designing small training sessions, sharing her knowledge with those who were interested, and helping employees understand the complexities of aviation in a simple, approachable way. Her presence became a source of inspiration, showing that dedication, skill, and courage could come from anyone, regardless of their current role. The CEO and Maria also developed a unique bond. While the playful marriage challenge had been just a joke, it had opened the door for mutual respect and understanding. Adrian realized that Maria's courage and professionalism were qualities he greatly admired. They spent time discussing ideas, strategies, and projects, learning to appreciate each other's perspectives. The lighthearted beginnings of their interaction had grown into a deeper professional relationship, rooted in respect and shared admiration. Though their connection had started with humor, it now had substance and authenticity, built on trust, recognition, and the acknowledgement of true talent. Maria's confidence continued to grow with each passing day. The experience had taught her an invaluable lesson, that hidden potential, when embraced and nurtured, could lead to extraordinary outcomes. She began seeing herself not as a janitor or someone who had given up her dreams, but as a skilled professional capable of making meaningful contributions. The helicopter flight had been the catalyst, but the real transformation was internal. Maria now carried herself with quiet confidence, fully aware of her abilities and ready to face challenges with determination and poise. The employees around her also began to change. They started to value talent over appearances, capability over role, and courage over expectations. Maria's story became a living example of how one person's hidden skills could inspire and shift the perspectives of an entire community. The office, once ordinary and predictable, became a place of possibility and growth. People began seeking ways to discover and nurture their own hidden talents. Inspired by Maria's courage and the way she had handled the helicopter challenge with grace and skill, her presence reminded everyone that potential often lies in unexpected places. As weeks turned into months, Maria continued to excel in her new responsibilities. She took on aviation-related projects, mentored staff, and occasionally revisited the helipad for flight demonstrations. Each experience reinforced her confidence and rekindled her passion for flying. The CEO, employees, and even clients who visited the office began to see her not just as a janitor, but as a person of remarkable talent and character. Maria's journey from a quiet, overlooked employee to a respected professional demonstrated the power of perseverance, skill, and courage in the face of life's challenges. In the end, Maria had achieved more than anyone could have imagined, including herself. She had transformed from someone living in the shadows of her own talent to someone celebrated, respected, and empowered. The playful joke by the CEO had unexpectedly become a turning point in her life, revealing her skills to the world and opening doors she had long thought closed. Maria had proven that courage, determination, and self-belief could overcome fear, doubt, and underestimation. She had reclaimed her identity, embraced her talents, and inspired those around her to see potential in places they had previously overlooked. The story concluded with a sense of fulfillment and possibility. Maria's journey was no longer about the past she had left behind, but the future she was actively shaping. She had shown that hidden talent, once revealed and nurtured, could change lives, not just her own, but those of everyone around her. The playful words of the CEO had led to a serious transformation, reminding everyone that life is full of unexpected opportunities, and that courage and skill can turn even the simplest challenge into a moment of triumph and inspiration. Maria, once underestimated, had now become a symbol of hidden potential, resilience, and the extraordinary power of embracing one's true self.